everybody is having a fantastic day. I was thinking about this yesterday, and I like to talk about the things that are most relevant or interesting that's going on. And we have the stuff that's happening with Pulsechain, right? It's kind of like on the back burner at this point. Well, there is another opportunity where everybody can get a free copy of their tokens, their ERC20s. This is interesting, right? This is fascinating stuff. This is why I wanted to talk about this. Not only because I like free money, not only because I like increasing my bag, but because this is going to present opportunities that are greater than just switching your shit for fucking Maxi or Deci or all these other ones, right? Still extremely bullish on Hedron. I will continue. I have more Hedron right now than I've ever had before, and I will continue to acquire more Hedron, especially with this sell-off. It creates an even bigger opportunity, in my opinion. But this free money from Ethereum proof of work and Ethereum proof of stake will allow everybody to get their free ERC20s, free NFTs, free Ethereum W, right? And this can be a preview for what Pulse is going to do, right? Because Pulse is going to do the same thing. Pulsechain, right? They're forking Ethereum. Well, that's what we have going on here. So is this going to be a preview? If this gets effed up, is this a preview for how Pulsechain is going to launch? Where there's issue after issue, maybe? I don't know. But I know that there's an opportunity for free money. So we have some great stuff to run through today. We've got a couple different videos here that we're going to talk about. One in depth, covering a little bit more of this and all the details around it. And I think that he does a nice job of explaining this. Chico Crypto on YouTube has a video that we're going to check out. And then we're also getting into Tech Lead, which is a big YouTube channel that covers a lot of crypto related stuff, and how proof of stake is more risky. And I've said this on the stream before, and I've said this to people in private. People are like, okay, the Pulsechain, right? You're like, okay, cool. This is better, is what a lot of people believe. But is it better if it's more centralized? Is it better if it has a higher likelihood of being attacked and controlled by the government? Well, we've got a video that from Tech Lead that helps go through and expose this risk. This is literally what I've been saying. Pulsechain is supposed to have 32 validators. Cool. I can go attack those 32 validators and fuck up that shit for the entire network, right? Versus if there's 3,200 or 32,000 validators, then the probability of me being to affect the network diminishes to virtually nothing. Well, that is what he talks about related to Ethereum, right? And Ethereum is going to be much bigger than Pulse, right? So if this is happening with if this is happening with Ethereum proof of stake, like clearly it's going to happen with Pulse. Unless something changes, but it increases the probability of issues actually taking place. So those are some of the things we're going to talk about today. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on Hedron. Let's say hi to the chat real quick. Antis del Sol, what's Gucci? I am still buying Hedron. If you look at the price this morning, Hedron has had a sell-off like a lot of the market did, and they're selling at 5 zeros and a 4, basically. I am still purchasing. I haven't seen anything change. I did not check the price of Hex this morning, but I don't think Hex has had a gigantic sell-off. Pull this up right now in the background. Hex is at 4 cents, right? 3.9. So the opportunity with Hedron is still there. I actually pulled more LP, liquidity providing from Uniswap, so that I could have more Hedron. I am very bullish on Hedron. Let's say RH Max, what's good? Used to like Tech Lead, but stopped following him after all he did was shill million token. Like forever, got annoying and took away from his content. I don't actually watch a lot of YouTube other YouTubers personally. Like, nothing against anybody else. I just have fucking business to run and other people to talk to and all this other shit going on. But I remember watching some of his videos. He's been on YouTube for fucking a long time. Chico, AJ, what's good, bro? How you doing? Appreciate your support here. A-Train, morning. Hex Howl 33, active in rotation, can be many. I don't know. Wait till you watch this video. Can 33 be big enough? When you look at some of the risks this puts forth, I'm not sure. But this is why we're doing this, so we can have a dialogue and learn, right? And understand other people's points of view so we can choose the best solution for ourselves. Anti-soul. Okay, with that being said, I am going to put on some DeFi proof. Actually, Bullish is in the background, so give me a bicep in the chat for Bullish. We're going to listen to some DeFi proof, and then we're going to be back in just a minute. Bullish, go ahead, sir.
You already know what time it is. Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning. Waiting on phone. Crypto in the morning. 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 Waiting on phone. Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning. Smoking a blunt on my way to the gym. 11 a.m. and I'm already tuned in. Got me some hex and I'm making a stake. Got me some hedge on, I'm making it rain. Pay me some maxi and that's just in case. Jim ready to send me to show you the way. Crypto in the morning, 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 crypto in the morning.
Okay, so Funding Jim is in the house. My girlfriend is in the house, and several other Monica's here. What's up? Corey, hello. I hope everybody is doing well on this amazing day. We had in Ethereum, we had the hard fork to, I think, the Beacon chain. Somebody can correct me on the actual name of the chain there. But before we get into all that stuff, I want to play a video here that does a nice job of synthesizing, like bringing together little bits of information from all over the place to lay the foundation here for your free tokens. Now, is this going to be where you have, say, Ethereum and then Pulsechain and something holds parity like Hex? Like, so we're going to talk about that example when we get into the bridge, because there's already a bridge available from Orbit to transfer your assets from proof of work Ethereum to proof of stake Ethereum, right? But is this going to be like Ethereum Classic versus Ethereum, right? Ethereum Classic was the OG. Ethereum Classic was the original. And then I think it was the MakerDAO for the DAI stablecoin was hacked. One of their smart contracts was hacked, where you could basically pull money out of it back in 2016. And the people at the foundation for Ethereum decided to do a hard fork, right? So Ethereum Classic they were like, let's fuck this guy out of all the money that he's stealing. And they created Ethereum as it today. That's why there's Ethereum Classic and Ethereum. Now this is highly likely, in my opinion, to be happening again, but I want to hear what you guys' thoughts are on this. So let's pull up this video here. This is a guy on YouTube. His first time seeing his video. Last night I pulled it up as preparation for this. And I liked the way that he presented his information. So we're going to listen to this, and I might stop it here and there as need be. Anybody who is in Vegas, Monica's out there. GRC is out today, and there's a bunch of other people out there. I think RH Max said that he was out there. Anybody at PulseCon, come hang out at Maximus booth around 1 p.m. So if anybody is out there, or if you know anybody out there, tell them to hit up the Maximus booth at I don't know where that's located, but I'm sure if you're out there, you probably know where it's actually going to be located. But without further ado, let's get into this video.
To look into the risks
You guys hear this
involved
okay?
with this, as it's possible it doesn't go all to plan. Yes, Ethereum has been testing this with all its test nets, and it's worked out with every single one of them, but this is a big change. It's like changing your car from gas to electric while speeding 70 miles per hour down the freeway. The chain has to continue running without stopping. It's possible that the mainnet merge doesn't happen smoothly and the blockchain grinds to a halt. That would mean a chain restart would have to happen before the merge. That's not good and would put a damper on Ethereum's reputation. People would call Ethereum Solana. It would be bad, the price would suffer, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. It's also possible another delay comes as they notice a bug which would cause the network to grind to a halt. This would be better than the blockchain stopping, but again, if a delay comes, the price of Ether would suffer because of it. The biggest risk of all is the forking risk. The Ethereum chain gets split in two as the miners continue mining on the continued proof of work chain. Ethereum has already forked once with Ethereum Classic, but it's very possible a new fork happens on September 15th, the ETH POW fork. I covered this a week and a half ago. Chandler Guo, prominent Chinese miner, is the one behind the possible fork. He tweeted, "I fork Ethereum once, I will fork it again." He has since then
Think about that. Like, this dude has been in the game for a while. Clearly, if he's forked it from the beginning, and he's got a gigantic incentive to do that. Did you see the dude standing by all those racks of miners? If I've got millions and millions of dollars tied up in one way of doing something, right? Warren Buffett, he's got billions of dollars tied up in USD. Do you think he's going to have a positive opinion about crypto? No. That's the future. And he's got all of his money tied up in USD, right? This dude has all of his money and resources tied up in miners. Do you think he's going to want to switch to proof of stake? No. He's going to want to continue to use where he's put his millions of dollars. And he goes on, right, to say that he's already forked Ethereum once. So let's get back into this.
Been moving full steam ahead on once, I will fork it again. He has since then been moving full steam ahead on a fork. Last week he tweeted ETH POW testnet coming soon. And just days after this, he tweeted the GitHub for ETH POW and said, "The ETH POW core development organization has open sourced the first version of the code today. The main functions are as follows: perfectly diffuse the difficulty bomb. The miner reward for recovering the EIP 1559 burning will be distributed to the miners of each mining pool." And
well, that's also interesting too. So with this fork, right? That second point there. The first one I don't fully understand. If somebody understands that one more, let me know. But he says perfectly diffuse the difficulty bomb. No idea what the F that means, but it has something to do with the mining of that. But point number 2 here, right? So this is from the dude who's forking this, or one of the fellows who's put the consortium together to fork Ethereum. The miner reward for recovering the EIP 1559 burning will be distributed to the miners of each mining pool. What does that mean? Well, what if I told you that, like, I was creating my own token where instead of every time you had to pay a gas fee of $5, $3, $20 on Ethereum, on my chain, we actually paid you the gas, right? Well, that's effectively what point number 2 is. So with this fork, right, the proof of work Ethereum fork, where everybody's going to get their free copies of all their tokens, the preview of Pulse, the EIP 1559, I think, was implemented in the last 12 months. And effectively what that did is took a portion of all of the transaction fees. And at times when I think he might actually get into that in this video potentially, but that gives the portion of the fees that was pulled to burn Ethereum, right, and reduce the inflation impact of it. And at times of congestion, it's even higher. Well, the fees that would go to burning Ethereum are now in the proof of W proof. That's what they're calling it, like the Ethereum W is going to be given back to the miners. So the miners are going to make more money. This is going to allow all the miners to increase how much money they make, which for something like this to work, it needs adoption, right? It needs adoption. There's other points I want to make on this as we move on, but I just wanted to point that out right there because that's going to increase the buy-in from people.
And adjusted the difficulty of starting ETH W. And already exchanges have started listing ETH W IOUs, meaning the future token has a price. As of yesterday, it was sitting just above $63.
That's cool. Binance, FTX. Good morning, everybody in the chat. How is everybody? We got 112 people here on just a smidgen of a tangent here. There's an arrow below here with it's like this, right? With an arrow on there, and that's the share button. Take a second if you're enjoying this, if you're getting value from this, take a second, share this out so that other people can learn what's going on about their free money. Like this is literally free money that's getting handed out. And I don't know of anybody else who's talking about it like this. I think this community, because of Pulsechain, has already implanted that idea of a fork of Ethereum. So they get free tokens and has put a lot of mind energy into figuring out what might actually take place. Like what could take place when there's a fork of this, right? When you get a copy of your 100,000 hex, you have a copy of that on the other side. How is Richard Hart going to respond to this, right? How are other people going to respond to this, right? But this currently has a placeholder on like Binance and some other exchanges of $63. Remember, Ethereum is $1,500, $1,400, I think, as of this morning. So is this going to hold parity? It doesn't necessarily look like that as of this moment, but even if you got 5% of your holdings or 25% of your holdings, right? If you have 100 grand and you got an additional $25,000, I'll take that shit. You guys don't have to. You can give that to me. Yes, I'll share the stream. You had better do that. Sorry, just kidding. Let's get back into this.
Switching to markets, we can see Poloniex, Gate.io, MEXC, Femex, DigiFinex, and some obscure exchange have listed the IOU for the token. So it definitely...
And then also Binance and FTX have both mentioned, I read an article on this yesterday, Binance and FTX, right, two gargantuans in the industry, have both said that they would support it. And Coinbase, as well as one other exchange, said that they would, centralized exchange, said that they are going to be taking a look into the fork and understanding behind this. I think that there's a lot of, if they had taken the time to plan this in the future, the people who were mining and they're like, okay, yeah, we're definitely forking this. We're going to make this the most successful thing possible. I think that they could have garnered a lot more support and users, which would obviously be the thing that the catalyst, right, that drives everything is the community behind this. So I'm very curious. I think this is going to present a massive amount of opportunity. Bullish, if you can find an article, this would be dope. Maybe we can get into it because this can also help protect people. A relay attack, which I was learning about yesterday. If we have time, we'll touch on the relay attack and how to protect yourself from that if/when we see this fork, which I do believe we will.
Seems like this is going to go down, and that could spell problems for Ethereum. For one, it could split the community. The Ethereum mining community is pretty large, and they are being thrown to the curb. Community splits are never good. But this could also cause big problems for regular Ethereum investors as a whole who decide to start playing around with the ETH POW chain, as they get duplicate everything, Ethereum, NFTs, and ERC20s.
Right? It's not just me telling you guys this. Like, other people see what's happening. We have whales moving their money along. Yesterday, we took a look at an article from CoinDesk or something related to Aave. Aave, the lending protocol, the DeFi lending protocol. It's not really DeFi, but it's centralized DeFi, which means it's not really DeFi, where you can place your tokens into a smart contract and then borrow against them. What for people who are not super familiar with debt in that form, right? Borrowing, right? So if I have $100,000 of, USDC, I can place it in there and then I can borrow Ethereum against that $100,000 position. Borrowing is a way to create leverage. So if you think of this little thing here, right? And you put it on my finger here and you push this side underneath something to lift it up, right? If you slide this down here, that would be like increasing the amount of leverage. That means at this end, you wouldn't have to push as hard to lift up my finger there. Now, when you look at Aave and you think about debt on Aave, and they limited this yesterday, and you're like, why would Aave limit how much people can borrow in Ethereum? Well, let me ask you a question. If you knew you were going to get a free copy of everything in your wallet, and you believe that the one that's going to probably hold price parity, and I'm not saying this will hold price parity, but the one that could potentially hold price parity to the highest degree would probably be Ethereum, right? Well, if you had that belief, what do you think you could do given Aave and leverage that we just talked about? Well, one thing you could do to increase your exposure, meaning increase your returns, would be to take $100,000 of USDC, you put it into a smart contract with Aave, and say you borrow $65,000 worth of Ethereum against that position. Let's just say it was $100,000 of Ethereum, right? And then you borrowed 50% of that. Now, when we get a fork, what ends up happening? Well, let's start with a base case. You started with $100,000 of Ethereum. Now we have a fork. Say a week later, 2 weeks later, whatever the case is, you have two versions. So you have a system state, right? Ethereum proof of stake, Ethereum proof of work. But now you've got double the amount of money and it's borrowed. So you're getting even bigger leverage. On this side, you've got $100,000 of Ethereum, right? And then before you put it into the protocol to borrow against it. Then you have the post afterwards, right? That's over here. You've got $150,000 worth of Ethereum on this side, plus $150,000 worth of Ethereum on the other side. So you've just increased your exposure from 1 to 3x using debt. That's how debt works like leverage, right? If we were to put this on the edge of here to try to pry something up, right? The bigger the lever is, the more leverage you have, the higher the amplification effect it is on your returns. The same thing works in real estate. Why do I love real estate? Because it's a very easy way to use debt in a safe manner, right? So I find this super fascinating. And I think that is one of the reasons why Aave limited how much borrowing can take place with Ethereum. Let's touch on a couple comments here real quick before we dive back into that video. Gifford, what's Gucci? I like your thumbnail. As the mining difficulty increases, it eventually leads to a point at which the mining becomes impossibly difficult, or rather totally unprofitable. This is considered to be the difficult bomb. Oh, thank you. So what does it mean when they said that he's changing the difficult bomb in that section, in the first one, Gifford, if you are aware of that? AJ, morning, sir. Can you imagine what happens when all these forks fail to do what people want and people realize Pulsechain has been working flawlessly for 2 years? I mean, Ethereum Classic works, right? Not necessarily saying that there's a boatload of people there, but Ethereum Classic has value. So I think that this is probably going to be, I mean, I think that hypothetically it could be more than Ethereum Classic, right? Because you've got a lot more users and it's not related to fraud like it was. This is just a differing opinion, right? And you already have a built-in user base of people that have a vested interest in the success, whether it's developers and people who, like that Chinese fellow who has a bunch of money invested into this. There's a lot of people who have a bunch of money invested into this. And then there's other people from a philosophical standpoint who see proof of stake as far riskier, which we're going to get into in a second after we finish this video.
Chain Debrief put out a great article titled "What Are Replay Attacks? Why you need to know them."
This is one of the articles you should probably take a look at
before the Ethereum merge. Article states, with the merge, 2 chains will now be present: proof of work and proof of stake. This will create 2 versions of your NFTs and assets. This is the primary issue that leaves you subjected to a replay attack. This is basically where a transaction that happens on one chain can be exploited to happen on another. For example, you decide to list your BAYC NFT on the POW chain, hoping to cash out and still have a copy to hold and show it off. The issue, however, is that an individual could replay the transaction on Ethereum 2.0, selling your Bored Ape Yacht Club on the new chain, leaving you with nothing. Now, an Adam McBride on Twitter tweeted a thread about this replay attack possibility, and one guy replied to the thread, "You're just making me more nervous now, Adam," of which Adam replied, "Join the club. Supposedly devs are already building bots to try and take advantage of this possibility." Now, if you don't interact with
he gets into how to, like, very, very simply, I don't know how the replay attack works, like in the semantics of the details of it, but he gets into, you basically just got to switch your address, I think. But is it worthwhile to even switch your address? I would do more research on that before you do the switching of the Ethereum address. Because that he goes on to say how this actually breaks the link between the two, because you have the same address in both of those, right? And then it goes like this. And so you have the same address in both of these and something related to that, but I haven't looked into the replay attack super in depth yet.
W chain, then your assets are safe. But if you do, you better take precautions. After the merge, send all your assets to a new Ethereum proof of stake wallet, and then do the same on the proof of work chain. Send all your assets to a new address, a different address than the POS chain. Then continue using only one on that respective chain. You break the link and the possibility of a relay attack. So my friends, the ETH merge should go down in history as a success, as it puts Ether in a position which makes it look more attractive than Bitcoin. But there are risks, and those risks could affect normal investors if they decide to see what the fork chain is all about. Cheers, viewers. I'll see you next time.
So we found a video here that is going to help explain how a relay attack works, and hopefully it gets into some of the details on how you could actually protect yourself. It's related to Bitcoin, but it should apply here as well. I see some comments in here from Gifford. EIP 155, here we go, so everybody can see it. EIP 155 is currently enforced on ETHW testnet. Oh yes, guys, there's a testnet out there. Thus, all the transactions have to be signed with chain ID. This will effectively protect ETHW users from replay attacks from the POS ETH and other forks. Oh, thank you for that. That is awesome, Gifford. I appreciate you sharing that information. So that is great news. Johnny Strong. What happens if we launch and because of all this, it deflates our balloon by making it all just a coin that cried wolf? Do you mean Pulsechain, or do you mean Ethereum W, or do you mean Ethereum 2.0? One way that you can look at this, which I'm not sure if it translates to reality in crypto, but Tesla has a good example of this. They've done this twice, and there's a bunch of companies, but Tesla's the one that comes to mind. Just recently, I think in August, like early August or something, Tesla went through and did a 2-for-1 stock split. So they had, say, shares that were $600, And then they split those shares. So if you had 10 shares, now you have 20 shares, right? You just look at your brokerage account and you're like, I bought 10 shares, and you open up, you're like, damn, I have 20 shares. And then you're like, oh, fuck. Tesla was $600 and now it's only $300, right? So in the one sense, everything could be worth less, right? That's in the legacy. That's how it plays out, right? And there's reasons to do that from a psychological standpoint. Like people want to upright the unit bias that we talk about, where people like to own one full unit of something, right? They don't just want to own a fractional share of Tesla. They'd like to own one full share of Tesla. And if Tesla's at $600, that's challenging for some people to do, right? Well, I see this as kind of similar with forks, right? Now, does it play out into reality? Like, does the effectively stock split from Ethereum 2.0 to Ethereum W, does that affect the prices of both of those? I would think, right? We live in an interconnected world where everything has an impact on everything else in some fashion, whether that's a large magnitude or small magnitude effect. You would think it would. I'm not sure how much it's going to affect things, but I do believe it will affect things in some fashion. We have whales. There was another report that I saw of a whale from Genesis, right? So this is old Ethereum that hasn't moved or done anything in a while. In 7 years, this Ethereum whale has not done anything. And they started moving their money. I wish I'd saved that article so I could read through it, because I was just reading the headline on it. But this is somebody who has been sitting on Ethereum for 7 years and not touching it. And now, with what's going on, they started to move it. I don't know about you guys, but some of the times I like to try to understand people with a lot more money than I have and what they're doing, because they probably have a different data set than I do, right? They probably have different information. That's what I mean by data set. They have a different information set than I do. And there's a reason or rationale behind the decisions they're making. That's why they're making these decisions. I'm super curious to see what's actually going to take place with this, how this is going to be impacted. This video is super short. This goes into the relay attack, and then we're going to get into tech lead, right? And how the proof of stake is actually a lot riskier than proof of work, right? Same thing with Pulsechain, right? It is risky, right? Because it's never fucking been done before, but also because you have validators. That's risky, right? You're centralizing the throughput of the entire blockchain. So when you have a centralization, when you have a choke point, when you have that part, think of this. If you have a movie theater or a stadium, right? And you got 40,000 people in the stadium, and you've got, 47 exits, but each exit is like this big, right? So you can get 3 or 4 people through at a time. Well, when bad things happen, right, you get congestion. But also, if I was a nefarious person, right, and I know there's 20 exits of this stadium with 40,000 people inside, and I want to control those 40,000 people, do I just go into the stadium and just start telling people what to do? Or do I place armed guards at all the 20 exits, and I have 20 people to control 40,000 people? My friends, that's how it actually works in reality. That's the weak point. That's what gets attacked. Period. Whether you like it or don't. And that happens with proof of stake, which we're going to get into after this video.
Replay attacks explained. In order to understand what a replay attack is, we first must understand how Bitcoin works. Bitcoin is a global ledger.
So this is on Bitcoin, but it's going to relate to this as well.
Anyone can verify transactions by downloading a copy of the ledger. Hard forks. A hard fork creates a copy of the ledger. All existing transactions are intact, but the rules are changed by making it incompatible with the previous version, creating a new ledger. Replay attacks. If you hold Bitcoin before the split, you will own an equal amount on the new ledger. But what
Free
if you
money.
wanted to send Bitcoin from one chain and not the other? This could be a problem because if you send coins on one chain, the person you sent it to could send the same transaction on the other ledger. This is called a replay attack because they are replaying your transaction. Replay protection. The creators of the Bitcoin Cash hard fork included replay protection to protect their users against these attacks. The developers behind the SegWit2x hard fork, scheduled in 3 months, are refusing to add replay protection. They claim Bitcoin Core should add replay protection if it's a concern. Unfortunately, the only way to add replay protection to a ledger is with another hard fork. Thus, Bitcoin Core would have to hard fork at the same time as the SegWit2x hard fork. This would create 4 Bitcoin chains: Bitcoin Core Replay, Bitcoin SegWit2x, and Bitcoin Cash. Most Bitcoin Core developers are not opposed to creating a hard fork, but they believe that 3 months is not enough time to prepare, so this scenario is unlikely. What happens next? As a user, your main option will be to mix your coins with a transaction that exists on one chain but does not exist on the other. Mixing your coins with unreplayable transactions will make your transactions unreplayable. It is likely that exchanges and merchants may offer these mixing services to ease the transition. Conclusion. If, like most Bitcoin users, you're more of a holder and less of a spender, replay attacks will not likely be much of a problem. You'll want to mix your coins once and keep them in cold storage, allowing you to spend in the future without worries. However, if you are unaware of this information, anytime you spend on one chain, you will likely be risking holdings on the other chain. Knowledge is power. Be informed. Please like and share this video to help.
So as we talked about with the other and that other dude's video, he said the way to actually go through and break this is to transfer your money to another address, right? So you have your Ethereum address, right? Which is going to be the same Ethereum address when 2.0 launches and Ethereum W, right? So it's going to be split like this, and you're going to have both of the same address on either side. So from my understanding, right, and this is elementary, it is a little bit like I'm just learning as we go, but in order to break it so you can't have replay attacks, then you're just going to transfer everything to a separate address. But Gifford had mentioned in the chat here, EIP 155 is currently enforced on the ETH POW testnet. So I believe, and if Gifford's still here, I'd love to know, or somebody else who has more expertise and understanding of this, I would like to know, does EIP 155 on Ethereum proof of work testnet also protect the other side, right? Because I would think a replay, you could go in either direction. Proof of stake Ethereum, proof of work Ethereum, it would happen on both sides. Like, so if you spend on the proof of work, it probably could be replayed on the proof of stake. So if anybody has this information, excuse me, I would love to know. Because it's on the one side, does that mean it kind of fixes the problem on the other side? I'm not sure. I definitely would recommend additional like research and learning about this, because this is brand new shit, guys. Like, this stuff is why crypto is just dominating, right? With this recession, right? The slowdown globally. This is why crypto is going to completely destroy this as we come into this next bull run. When you come into hard times, the people who are going, in terms of industry, are going to succeed and grow and like become the next Uber and become the next Airbnb out of crisis. right, are the companies that are being resourceful, being lean, as in not a bloated budget and spending money on dumb shit like every single legacy company. Where's that happening? In crypto. We see new projects launching practically daily. And that's in this tiny little community, this microscopic speck in the broader crypto marketplace. There's stuff launching all the time. Now, put it into perspective across all these different communities. You have new shit launching all of the time. By the time we come out of this and get into the next bull run, you're not going to be able to even recognize what is taking place because how fast stuff is actually taking place. I'm going to touch on a couple more comments here, and then we're going to get into Tech Lead and talk about why proof of stake is actually risky, why proof of stake is actually increasing the risk of the entire system, as we just talked about with the stadium example. So DS, what's good? Not about money. He simply can't develop and complete Pulsechain because it's hard to do L1 right. I'm not opposed to that. I could see that, right? I could see Pulsechain being a big issue and not necessarily launching till next year, right? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot more issues there. Sam, you understood it. Transfer coins to new wallet address and it will minimize risk. Thank you, Bullish, right? So appreciate Bullish. He's got a little bit more of a technical background than I do. Johnny Strong here mentions, I just sent you a test to see if I have the right Telegram address. Okay, that's in regards to somebody else. If you guys want to support the channel, there's some links down below. If you're watching on GRC's channel or if you're watching on my channel, there's links back and forth so you can check us out or go over to Twitter and all that fun stuff. Feeder doesn't know about this stuff. I don't know. I haven't talked to David. Or is David in here? I'd love to hear his thought on this. Monica, Sam, always like hearing your thoughts process. Well, I appreciate you. I don't know how you guys keep up. And it might sound funny, like we're keeping up on this stuff, but when you actually try to stay on top of stuff, you realize that like it's so expansive and changing so fast that there's so much stuff that I miss, right? There's so much stuff here that I completely miss here. Don't get shiny object syndrome. Correct. Continue to invest for the long term, right? Free money is free money, though. Like, I'll take free money. I agree. Many people left and stopped paying attention completely. So now let's get into why the proof of stake, right? Ethereum 2.0 plus Pulsechain actually increases risk. I talked about this before with several people and like, oh no, that's not an issue. Yeah, it is an issue, right? The stadium. All you got to do is control the 32 doors on Pulse. And one thing, where do you think most of those doors are going to be located? Those doors are a metaphor for validators. If you have validators for transactions, and most of those validators are located in one geographic location, do you see an issue there? That is what he is about to bring up. So let's get into it.
Once Ethereum migrates to proof of stake, well, it turns out that all of these proof of stake validators are easily centralized and can be easily regulated. Over 66% of the beacon chain validators will have to adhere to OFAC regulations and compliance. So you've got Lido Finance.
Oh, would you look at that? That is so weird, right? You have all these validators and they're all located, 66% of them are all located in one area. That's strange. They all have to comply with the rules in that area. That's weird. So that means the United States can effectively control what is going on. I can't control all 32 doors, right? In the stadium example. But what if I could control 21 of those doors? Wow, I have a big fucking influence on the 40,000 people in that stadium. Big a big effect here. What is OFAC? OFAC is the Office of Foreign Assets Control and a Financial Intelligence and Enforcement Agency of the United States Treasury Department. It administers and enforces economic and trade sanctions in support of U.S. national security and foreign policy objectives. I think there's also a lot of OFAC reporting to, OFAC reporting for KYC. Because I think that also has part of it too. KYC. Let's see here. There's a bunch of those things. FAQ. There's going to be a bunch of this stuff. Well, I don't want to pull that up and read through that now on here. I just wanted to point that out. This is the weak point. This is the chokehold. This is how the government gets in and controls stuff if all this shit is located in the United States. That 66%, that's an issue.
Binance, Coinbase, Kraken, Staked US, Bitcoin, Swiss AG, and all of these are just they have to follow the rules. And so we have a situation here where there can be a potential 51% majority attack on the Ethereum at the protocol level where the government can regulate and control the entire blockchain. They can say, for example, hey, we don't want you to process any blockchain transactions that involve certain addresses or that interact with Tornado Cash or any type of protocol they choose. Essentially, the government will own the Ethereum blockchain at that protocol level, which completely defeats the purpose of decentralization because these large companies, do you think they'll actually say no to the government when they receive a letter from TRM Labs or whatever asking them to sanction certain addresses or protocols?
Did the banks tell the government in Canada no when you had everyday people going through and buying gas for the freedom protesters in Canada, or everyday people going through and supporting them and buying them lunch, and the government told the banks, hey, bend over, grab your ass cheeks and pull them apart because we're about to fuck you up and steal your client's money? No, they just bent over. That's what happens. You got to protect yourself.
You can see a tweet here from the CEO of Coinbase who says, well, sanctioning a technology seems like a bad precedent and it should probably be challenged. But you know what? We're always going to follow the law. But still, kudos to him for even making a statement on this because a lot of the Ethereum community have remained silent or divided on this because there's even this conflict of interest where in the short term, people want the merge to go through, but in the long term, it can be pretty bad for decentralization. And so somebody even posed this question for those large corporate entities that are validating Ethereum 2.0. Well, if regulators asked you to censor Ethereum at the protocol level, would you A, choose to comply, or would you shut down the validator nodes, removing your voting power in order to protect the decentralization of the system? Now, for what it's worth, Vitalik Buterin, billionaire, voted that he would just shut down the nodes. And what this really means is that in order to prevent the government from simply confiscating those validator nodes, you need to burn the stake. And then the option, you would consider the censorship an attack.
So think about that. You run a validator mode, right? David Feeder in the Pulse, this community, he is going to be running a validator. What do you have to do to run a validator? You need a boatload of Pulse. What do you need to do to be a validator for Ethereum? Again, you need, I think it's 32 ETH, right? 32 ETH, that's at least 40 grand-ish, right? So a lot of people are going to be left out of that. And companies like Coinbase or the people who are running these giant, right, nodes and validators, do you think that when they stake this, right, because that's how the validator works, you're basically putting your Ethereum up as a stake and you're locking it up to prove that you have a financial interest in this going through properly? Now, do you think the people who have millions and millions of dollars locked up as Ethereum validators are going to want to bend over and just say, nope, we're going to shut our shit down? Do you know what that means when they just shut their shit down? They lose those millions of dollars. Do you think that they're going to do that to protect the broader community of decentralization? You got to be out of your fucking mind. Courts are not going to do that. Or they require some courage, require some backbone to actually do things like that. These companies are not going to do that. No, they're going to comply. Period. right? Just like the people who complied with wearing a diaper on their face, right? This is no effing different.
Those validator nodes, you need to burn the stake. And then the option, you would consider the censorship.
Right there. You have to burn that stake. You have to burn that millions of dollars. That means you just have to be like, okay, for the good of the system, millions of dollars down the drain. That shit is definitely not happening.
An attack on Ethereum itself and burn the stake via social consensus, because once the merge is complete, it's basically checkmate in favor of the government. Because now for you to try to protect the decentralization of Ethereum, you have to burn the same Ethereum that you've been putting in. You just have to burn your own money to try to protect the system. And this is just a problem that proof of work doesn't currently have. Once you get into proof of stake, it's a centralization problem that's simply getting worse with more regulations and sanctions coming in. And speaking,
we know this is going to be issues, guys. Like, I'm not just trying to be negative here. You just got to point out the obvious. You got to point out the obvious. You don't have some of these issues with proof of work, right? You like care about the environment, cool. Go plant a fucking tree in your backyard, or stop using plastic or some shit like that, right? But it's a stronger network, as in today. Maybe that changes in the future, but currently this proposes risks, and we're going to get into one of these things. An article from Cointelegraph in a few minutes here, which they talk about one of the Ethereum whales that we just talked about a few moments ago, who's moving about 150,000 ETH, and see what they're doing to try to get a better understanding of what are the whales doing, right? Because they probably have a different data set. They have access to information that we don't have access to. So not saying that we agree with what the whales are going to do or we're going to repeat what the whales do, but getting an idea of what the whales are doing and how they're moving their funds around can give us a better understanding of maybe how things might look when we put it into context of a much broader picture. So we're going to look at that article as soon as this is done.
Speaking of sanctions, there was actually this hilarious GitHub code pull request where somebody wanted to extend sanctions even more, noting that, well, the current endpoint doesn't go far enough in sanctioning bad people and bad addresses, as this only covers one region of the world, that being the USA. And he says, well, the world is much larger, and we should account for all possible sanctions in every corner of the globe, not just one country. And so if you check his code, he now added the UK sanctions list, in which he's not
one of the, I think this is enough on this guy. One of the issues here is the United States, Australia, the UK, and the EU, which is like 27 countries. We like to think of these things as autonomous organizations or countries, right? They have their own control to think for themselves and make their own decisions in the best interest of their constituents of their country. But what actually happens, if you look at the UK, Australia, EU, and the United States, those regions all act together in whatever they do. They're not independent. They're all just fucking doing the same shit. What is really bad for their constituents, which is really bad for the people who live in those countries. That's not a good thing. You don't think that if I was going to say if, but I don't think that's actually the right word to use. When the clowns in government go through and try to use the soil, if you're a validator and it's located in the United States, use the soil where the validator is located to control blockchain as a way to regulate it, you don't think for half a freaking moment that the UK, that the EU, 27 countries, or ish, maybe more now, and Australia and Canada, I forgot about that, aren't going to all be like, yeah, let's go fuck them over. Yes, of course they are going to do exactly the same thing. They all work in conjunction with each other. They're all going to do this. So if you listen back to that video, He says 66% of the validators in Ethereum proof of stake are located in the United States. How many of those do you think are located in those 5 areas? Canada, Australia, UK, EU, and the US. Do you think that number goes up above 75, up above 80? And then when the United States comes over and starts to try to regulate things in our borders, you don't think that every single one of those other countries is going to follow suit to try and control what is happening? You get a lot of room to move forward. Now, let's touch on some comments here and then get into the next article here. So we have Benny Blanco. It says, Richard has covered this. These are just imaginary horribles. This guy has a motive just like, I mean, if you don't live in reality, sorry, bro. But if you've been like aware for the last 36 months, then trying to play something off as an imaginary horrible while living in the last 36 months, I think there's some cognitive dissonance happening there. Like anybody who thinks that that's not going to happen, I just think it's foolish and nearsighted. Very, very silly of me. For somebody, right? It's just, that's what the government's going to do. Yes, but it's good to learn stuff like replay attacks. I completely agree. You're on it. Tell it. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. C3 works. Most people know nothing about network infrastructure, and I do mean nothing. And I 100% agree with that, Benny. If you have more information on that or like to talk about this stuff, share it. I'd love to learn more. AJ, consider the source. Sam has some valid points here. I appreciate you. I don't care what you guys do. I know how I'm going to be doing things or thinking about this stuff. This has been covered. I think you had already mentioned that. For the last time, these are imaginary horribles. I don't have time to sit here and write paragraphs and explain it. Cool. Then don't do that, bro. I mean, it's not hard to like put this stuff together. It's not super challenging to see like, oh, wait a second. Government loves control. They want to control everybody, and they're going to control in any manner that they can. Look at Canada, right? Like this shit is already happening. To think this is imaginary horribles is naive at best, in my opinion. But I would love to hear the other side of it. If you think that there's some way to control this other than what we have been talking about. Now, this is from Cointelegraph. Ethereum ICO era whale address transfers 145,000 ETH weeks before the merge. This is interesting. Let's read through here and then touch on this and give some feedback on it. The amount of Ethereum transferred just a month before the merge has generated community curiosity, with some claiming it'll be dumped while others say it's for staking. An Ethereum whale wallet that participated in the Genesis initial coin offering has obtained about 150,000 Ethereum in 2014, was active again in August 14th after 3 years of dormancy, right? 3 years, shit's not doing anything. You don't think this guy has some idea what's going on? You don't think this guy has some level of information that you don't have and that I don't have? Of course. I believe this dude has some, whether it's accurate or inaccurate, it's enough to cause him to take 145,000 Ethereum, which at $1,500 is, about 25% of $1 billion, and move it after 3 years because of something that's going on, right? So what information does this guy have? I don't know. Let's try to ascertain some like thinking behind what these actions he's taking. The whale address transferred 145,000 ETH to multiple wallets as the price of Ethereum surged to new 3-month highs of over $2,000. The transfers were made in batches of 5,000 ETH, with a few transfers over 10,000 ETH. The total value of transferred ETH is over 280, right? This is $250 million. And the wallet address currently has a balance of 0.1 ETH. The 145,000 ETH transfer was only the second time the wallet has been activated since the ICO. So since 2014, so 2014, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years. In 8 years, it's only done things twice, right? The people, sometimes there's like little sayings or cliches where people talk about the person who has influence or the person that is like quiet, right, and only takes action at a certain period of time, or the cliche, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, like you should listen twice as much as you talk type of thing. This dude or gal has only moved this money twice, right? This being one of those times. So this is interesting. 145,000 was transferred only the second time the whale has been activated since the ICO. The first being in 2019, when it sent 5,000 ETH to the exchange Bitfinex, while ETH was trading at $219, with the transaction valued at just over $1 million. The movement of such a high amount of ETH attracted community attention, with many claiming it could be dumped before the merge, the official transition of the current proof of work based chain to proof of stake one. However, it is important to note that most transactions are to unknown wallets rather than an exchange. So that's interesting. Even if the whale eventually decides to dump their 145,000 ETH, a $250 million sale pressure isn't considered significant enough to initiate a market dump. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that $250 million worth of Ethereum dumped on the market is not considered a market dump or would cause a market dump? I don't necessarily agree with that. Not necessarily because of the dollar amount, because maybe the market can absorb $250 million worth, but more so with the information asymmetry that is put forth. You have a whale, you have an insider who is making a decision to move $250 million of their money somewhere and selling it before a big thing happens. That would be an issue if it took place. A few other, and not saying this guy didn't, it looks like they're just transferring it to multiple other wallets. A few other believe that the whale might try to stake their ETH to become a validator on the POS network and generate passive income. Interesting. Ethereum's transaction to proof of stake network is slated for blah, blah, blah. The following. Okay, so this is interesting. What do you guys think is actually going on with this? What do you think is going to be taking place with the merge? How are you going to try to get your free shit, right? Is this going to be the preview of what Pulsechain is supposedly supposed to be, right? With the proof of stake, I'm just going to copy all your shit. Are we going to get? I believe we're going to get a copy with the proof of work chain, and then if Pulsechain ever launches, get a copy of shit there too. What the parity level of those are going to be is trivial, but it's just free money. Even if it's 20, 40, 50%, doesn't matter. It's free money. If you got $20 in there and you get 50% more for free, now you got $30. If you have 300 grand and you got 50%, there's $150,000, right? Doesn't matter. People like free money. Now, if you guys enjoyed the video, I would love you to subscribe. We are dropping some great content here. GRC is probably going to be back in a couple of days here out in Vegas. If you want to say what's up to me, there's a link down below in the Twitter. Jump over there, say what's good. Also, say hi to Bullish. He's over on Twitter as well. Tonight, 6 p.m. EST on my channel, I will be talking with Russ, and we're going to be talking more about this, but also what is up with Hedron. We're going to be talking about Hedron, Icosa, and Hex, and how all of those work together tonight, 6 p.m. EST. So make sure you get some popcorn, kick your feet up, and set your alarm for 6 p.m. EST tonight. Bullish, is there anything you wanted to touch on before we jump out of here? Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Trying to make it the best thing possible. Let's make sure we get a lot of likes and a lot of comments so that when GRC does come back, you can be like, oh wow, I should just be in the background here. They're doing fucking so good. They don't even need me on here. But without further ado, we got some DeFi proof to take us out of here. It looks like show Funding Jim some love on his YouTube channel. There's the link there. Jump over there, say what's good. He is going live at the Vegas stuff that people are doing. So if you want to catch some of the inside stuff over what's happening in Vegas, Funding Jim has some stuff over there. Jump to his YouTube channel, press the subscribe button, because this crypto isn't like you should just turn to one place to gather information. Try to find it from the people that you trust, right? You try to gather the information that you were like, oh, this dude is a fucking moron. Okay, well then don't pay attention to that dude. If you think that I'm being honest and authentic about what I'm trying to put forward, then cool, like great. And then also not necessarily a bad idea to gather information from multiple different sources. Think of like a mosaic, right? A mosaic is a bunch of little pieces all put together to paint a portrait, to paint a picture of some reality from all these tiny little pieces of glass, right? Inside of the Vatican, that's the ceiling inside the Vatican is all like that. Well, the same idea goes for your like investment thesis or how you see the world, right? All those little pieces of information put together. That's what we're trying to do here, is bring in little bits of pieces of information from all different sources together, a better understanding of the world. So appreciate you guys. Talk to you soon.
Farming with my stables in the decks. I'm holding IRA and never flex. I'm sticking all this shit on Everest. And I'm balling ECF. Farming with my stables in the decks. I'm holding IRA and never flex. I'm sticking all this shit on Everest. You see, the problem was these epochs. Now I'm printing daily, man, who need that? I check my APR on BFAT. And the regulation printing big stacks. I simple swapped it for some BNB. Took my shares and I made OP. What's going on?